So I'm sure you are here in response to our press conference calling on the administration as well as the majority in the legislature. As you well know, there's going to be a lot of numbers that are going to be discussed today. A lot of savings that this county could have had in regards to its procurement process, but the key thing that you need to be able to focus on is it's been 313 days since we have called for, as the legislative minority, reform in regards to the procurement process here in Nassau County. 313 days marks as we as lawmakers, Nassau County residents learned on how the broken contract process when we learned about AdTech. 313 days we watched not only Nassau County's highest elected state official, Dean Skelos, and his son be placed on trial, and that process began. 315 days later, we still have no response to our bills that have been put forward, the recommendations by the county executive's hand-picked committee. None of this stuff has been done, while at the same time, the people of Nassau County have compromised their faith and their know-how in a system that is flawed and broken. Additionally, as you well know, the district attorney also put in within her provision recommendations. It's pointed out the flaws in the system in regards to the procurement process. Called for a need of an inspector general, which not only is just an inspector general, but somebody that would be independent and have an opportunity to review the procurement process here in Nassau County. An inspector general is part of what we're talking about today, or one component of what we're talking about today. We're talking about putting in two bills. One bill, which would basically allow and enable an inspector general, an independent inspector general, that will be selected by an independent committee. The independent committee will be required to recommend only persons who have a minimum of 10 years of prosecutorial, judicial, or investigatory experience, and would be appointed by the bipartisan legislature. The appointment of said individual will be proposed by an independent committee would have to be placed before the legislature to vote on and would require a supermajority for appointment. What you're probably going to hear later on today from the county executive is the announcement of the procurement office. That's totally different than what we're talking about. The problem and the faith that people have, the lack of faith people have in this procurement process, is that they don't truly believe that it's independent. It should be independent of not just the legislature, independent of the county executive. That's the way you restore faith. No individual, if they're hired by the administration, is going to be able to act in an autonomy fashion because they know their job is tied to one person. This way, by having an independent form of what we're talking about, this person would have real authority. Real authority like being able to have actual subpoena power, which I doubt that procurement officer will probably have. Real authority like to have the ability to investigate, the ability to audit, can conduct reviews, all aspects of the county operations with specific focus on contract procurement. These are things that we're striving for today as a legislative minority to ensure that that inspector general position can perform real reform here for Nassau County. It's sad that we're here at this point, 313 days later, almost a full year, and not one movement in regards to reform in this county. We have taken the steps, myself, Legislator Szilagyi and Legislator Jacobs have taken the steps in the Rules Committee of abstaining from contracts, simply for this matter, because we do not know, or there hasn't been a complete vetting of the contracts that are before us today. How do we not know that there is an AdTech contract before us? How do we not know that there's a contract that's been given, could be through, because of relationships or friendships here in this county? We just do not know. And we have taken the position, though it's painful to do, because many of the contracts that we're voting against are agencies that have provided great service, but we do not know the origination of how they got that contract. It is very difficult for us to take steps towards supporting that contract in the future. The next component of our bill, as you all probably well read in the last week, is the use and the abuse of the $25,000 threshold for personal service contracts. This was a mechanism that was created that gave the county executive the ability to act in an emergency fashion, to be able to address services here in Nassau County quickly without being able to come through the full oversight of the legislature. We understand the mechanism, but we do not understand the use that the county executive has currently used and the abuse of it in that system. This is supposed to be a system for emergencies, but as we all know, some of the contracts that we've been reading about in the paper over the last year, doesn't sound like those contracts seem to be emergencies. All of those contracts could have been vetted through the Rules Committee, come through the Rules Committee, go through the full legislature as per some of the reforms that we're going to be talking about in the next couple of weeks, and be able to change the process as we see forward. But just to give you a snapshot of what we're talking about, right now, as you probably well know, the $25,000 threshold, if a contract comes in, very similar to the Bodito contract that we saw a little while ago, sometime last year, for $24,999, it does not have to come to the Rules Committee. What we are proposing is a couple different things. One, not only does it have to go through the Rules Committee, but it has to go through additional committees, as well as the full legislature. We are fully cognizant that some of our proposals will require some level of possibly a referendum, and we're okay with that. We actually put those provisions in our two bills today, requiring that if they do that, we actually support the county attorney in being able to put that forward to make sure that that was part of a referendum. However, as we all well know, the real problem is the lack of disclosure and oversight. Those are the two things that we saw when it came to the Aptec contract. Those are the two things that we're seeing currently with the blue chip contract, is that it doesn't have the oversight, it doesn't have the necessary reforms built into it, the proper disclosure, all the things that this caucus, the 7 members that stand here today, have been calling for the last 313 days. So the people of Nassau County deserve better. They deserve a system that they can believe in, one that they know that the best person that plays by the rules and does honest work will get the contract that they deserve. They do not deserve a system that is flawed with loopholes and potholes in it, lack of a better term, from that standpoint. I do have a timeline that presents from going back from April 16th last year, but I'm not going to go through that at this point, at this time. I just want to make sure that we cover 3 major points on what our bills will be filing today and what they mean. They'll force all personal service contracts of any amount come before the Nassau County Legislature. It would also provide an emergency clause that will give use to the county as an actual need for an emergency, spending for bipartisan approval, and not need any marketing company or worker, not need any marketing company to provide the work in that event. That's more subject to what we've just seen recently. And it will also allow the legislative oversight to prevent the issuing of questionable no-bid contracts, which we've also seen with the blue chip contract. These are all steps and provisions that are necessary for us to be able to go forward and ensure that we have the faith and the confidence of the people of Nassau County to be able to do the business of people of Nassau County. Before I take any questions, I just want to ask if there's any members that would like to say or add anything to the commentary that I have. Yes. Oh, Legislator Jacobs just brought up a good point, reminding me. Obviously, we're going to continue to abstain from contracts and voting in the Rules Committee until we see action taken on our 2 bills. Anybody have any questions?
I just want to be clear about the emergency clause. How exactly is that going to work? You're saying if there is, in fact, an emergency, then the county executive can assign a contract? How is that going to work?
Pete could give you the... Pete Clines is our minority counsel.
Yeah, there will be an emergency contract panel or committee with bipartisan membership appointed by the minority leader and the majority leader, who can be contacted in emergency to have preliminary approval of any bona fide contract in a situation where life, health, or property is in jeopardy in Nassau County. But the contract will still have to come to the full legislature for ratification.
So no longer will he be able to do it by himself?
Correct.
Okay.
And the committee that you talked about that would...
Select the Inspector General?
Right, and who would be on that committee? Would it be legislators?
For the emergency or for
No,
No.
she'd be
The Inspector
Inspector
General
General.
With the
Committee.
Inspector
Yeah.
General Committee.
They would be appointees by the county executive and the majority and minority leaders, who would then appoint qualified individuals to be the Inspector General with extensive law enforcement, auditing, prosecutorial or judicial background.
Okay.
I've been told that this no bid emergency contract thing goes back a number of legislatures, a number of county executives, but it was never enacted or reviewed. Why now so much in the last few years?
Well, I mean, obviously, Legislator Jacobs is also saying that this was something that Bruce Blakeman started. Each and every county executive is very different. Each and every county executive will interpret it and pursue what they believe they can use that the no bid or the personal service contract mechanism. Oops, sorry about that.
That's okay.
From our standpoint, we truly believe that some of the contracts that
Could
we
you
have
start one
seen.
more time from our standpoint?
Oh, sure. From our standpoint, we truly believe that some of the contracts that have been mentioned in Newsday, as well as mentioned in numerous media outlets, are clearly contracts that are not of the emergency nature. And though we will not want to think of being able to curtailing the county executive's power in regards to him actually being able to fulfill actual emergencies, we truly believe that none of these are. And from that standpoint, that's where the reform is necessary.
Would you say that, is the word abuse a harsh word to say?
No,
Or would you go that
no,
far?
I think abuse is fair. I think the administration has abused being able to provide personal service contracts, whether they be to Deedle and Associates. We just seen one recently in regards to blue chip marketing. These are contracts which do not come from my side, from our standpoint, are not emergencies per se. Some of the contracts didn't even have the input of the municipalities that they were analyzing. So it even questions whether or not they should even be done at all. So from that standpoint, we truly believe that we need this mechanism that's in place. And to be honest, whether it's this county executive or future county executives, it's important that we put this mechanism in place so that we know that the reform is there to be able to address every component of this procurement process as possible.
Now, the posting that the administration put up for their procurement officer required, from what I see, certified as a certified public procurement officer, had a certain level of experience in a public administration. So you're saying that person you don't believe would be, whoever they choose, would be independent or qualified based on what they required?
They hired a
posting? Well, I'm under the impression they may have hired someone, but the posting, you probably saw the job posting from a few months ago, it required a certain amount of things that they claim would make that person professional, not political. And
I can't see this person, any person that is hired in this position, number one, first and foremost, has to be independent in nature. They have to be able to have the authority and the ability to investigate, whether it be contracts that come through the legislature, contracts being proposed by the county executive. They should have the ability to review any of the contracts through DPW. I mean, we're seeing what's going on with that particular side of the county as well. So from that standpoint, we should make sure that that person's independent in nature. And if they need to get documents that are not forthcoming by the administration, they should have the ability to subpoena them. I doubt very much that that procurement officer that's being advertised or hired, that person will have that ability to do that. We're talking about giving some blanket authority and ability to a position to be able to truly reform the process, and that's not what's occurring already.
Any estimate on how many of these contracts for just under 25,000 have been issued?
It was 9.3 million, I think.
Yeah, legislative, yeah.
Between when?
I'm sorry?
From when? Do you want to just elaborate on the 9.3?
No, it was,
It was in the past,
Just come in front of my.
I think it was over a period of years.
yeah, but basically, when we looked at the other county executives, it's much higher than what's been going on now. And, I'm sorry, but I just wanted to mention also, the procurement officer, if they're gonna be hired by the county, that position, like what we really wanna do is get this to a place where it's not people that their paycheck is depending on, pleasing their bosses. We really need it to be someone who's looking out for the people and taxpayers. So if they're putting out a position that's going to hire someone, it's almost as if it's the same thing right now, which is people in charge of the departments. Yes, we believe that they have the right interest in mind, yet we also know that they are dependent upon administration for their paychecks. So we want to eliminate that process. We really want
And
to.
remember that when BPA came around the county, when BPA originally, before we were the majority in 2000, we actually went out of the county and had a judge head up a whole panel that reviewed BPA and actually brought it down, because that's how flawed it was. But the point is that the Lada stood by this agreement, Swazi stood by the agreement, that was almost 12 years, and now all of a sudden the word abuse may sound harsh, but it appears to be.
And I think that's what we were just saying. As legislators, we want to see the system fixed so that there's no potential for this type of abuse to ever happen again under any administration. These ideas are not so bad to have a $25,000 contract go, that is possible. But again, it does leave the window open for someone to take advantage. And we really want to set up a system that's as foolproof as we can possibly get, so that, we all want to be proud of, right now it's a very uncomfortable feeling, because like Kavan said, they've stopped voting for these contracts, but nothing has changed since this day that we realized how broken the system is. And really what we're doing by going along with it is enabling, and that's the last thing any of us want to be part of.
I just want to be clear. You said $9.3 million in these small contracts.
It was in his day.
Since
For a
when?
period of years.
Years.
2011.
2011, right?
Well,
Since 2011.
Since 2011.
9.3 million since 2011.
All right.
If I could, just to emphasize again, this is not just the policies of where we want to see the county go that are just beholden to the legislative minority. The district attorney, the czar panel, which was made up of individuals that the county executive hand-picked, that required that an inspector general, one of their recommendations was an inspector general be hired that has independent authority. These are not just our policies. These are the policies by some of the folks that are, whether they're in law enforcement or they're part of a panel, have made good recommendations that have gone nowhere in this county. And then also, quite frankly, obviously 313 days since before the czar panel, before the district attorney's recommendations, 313 days since we learned about AdTech, which if that wasn't notice enough that we needed to revamp our process, and then seeing in the subsequent months of the testimony being made at the trial of Dean Skelos and his son, if that didn't require us to act, I don't know what will. And that's why it's important that we get these two bills moving forward. We're urging the presiding officer to calendar them, and we're urging the county executive to sign them into law.
and with the 25,000 contracts, sometimes, as we've seen, more than one contract has been granted. So that adds up. And, if you're getting 50,000 or close to 50,000 from the county, that really should be coming before us. And by breaking it down to these $25,000 increments, it's really circumventing. And it's also, we really have to see how many were given to the same people over and over and over again, and what those totals were. I'm sorry.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kerry Salaj. I want to thank my colleagues for being here today, and I thank everyone here for being today. Our leader referred to the lack of these checks and balances as loopholes and potholes. I refer to them as black holes. We have really no clear understanding how much money, taxpayer money, is being used for personal gain or political gain. We deserve to have that transparency. We've been working for this for 313 days. We are persistent. We will not give up in making sure that Nassau County taxpayers have the accountable and transparent government that they deserve. We really believe that if you ask someone a question and they say no, then ask them again and again until you get that answer. And we're going to keep on fighting for the great taxpayers of this county. I am really concerned because every dollar that goes to waste could have went to a program to address mental health services, the heroin epidemic, and scandal after scandal, as we've seen in the news. We again continue to suffer from the lack of checks and balances. We deserve to have a government that reflects the standards that we care about in 2016, not a government that works only for the good old days and the good old boys. Thank you very much.
And just so you know, this is not new. We filed an Inspector General bill last year in October of 2015. So this bill is not a new bill for us. We're filing it as part of the procedure in the legislature. We have to file the bill when we start a new session, so we're filing the bill again in hopes that they will actually take action on it. Any other questions? And the $25,000 bill is actually a new bill that we're actually submitting today. But the Inspector General bill is an old bill.
How long could it take to, once he signs it, be like?
Well, first that assumes that the presiding officer will actually calendar it and it will pass in the legislature, which, again, we've been pretty vocal for the last, I would say, couple of months in regards to abstaining from contracts. I mean, we have abstained from rules contracts, DPW contracts. Think about it from this standpoint. We spend hundreds of millions of dollars on contracts that service the roads, the traffic lights, all throughout Nassau County. All of these contracts are going through a process which is unvetted by an Inspector General in light of what happened with AppTech. So the first step would be actually getting the proposal that we have before us, the bill that we have before us today, actually counted by the presiding officer. From there, it actually passing, and then from there, the county executive signing. We haven't seen a willing partner in any of these particular fronts. We haven't seen a willing partner from the majority in regards to making sure we can go forward with passing it in the legislature. And to be honest, we haven't seen a willing partner in the county executive to push the majority to be able to get things done. We've been pushing for disclosures. We've been pushing for oversight for 313 days. I think anybody of sound like mind would agree that 313 days is pretty long to wait for reform in this county. I don't care who you have reform. It's too long. It doesn't make any sense. It gives people the sense, quite frankly, that we're not going to do anything about it. That we're going to put our head in the sand and we're going to treat each situation as an isolated situation. And it's not that at all. We're seeing more and more incidences come up in the last few weeks, as well as the last few months, and quite frankly, in the last 313 days.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, everybody.
There's copies of both bills right